Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the circulatory system. There are a few major functions of the circulatory system. So it brings oxygen throughout the body and removes excess carbon dioxide. It carries nutrients throughout the body. Like I mentioned before, it removes excess carbon dioxide, which is part of waste removal. It also removes other chemicals resulting from cellular respiration or just simply breaking down of nutrients. It helps provide immunity, spreading around things that can destroy foreign invaders, as we will speak of later. It helps with cellular communication and provides a mode of transport for the endocrine system. It also helps with thermoregulation, controlling body temperature. So there are a few major parts of the heart, or the circulatory system. The major one being the heart, which is a muscular pump. It sends blood throughout the body. So the path of the blood, starting going into the superior and inferior vena cavas, it goes through the heart into the right atrium, past the tricuspid valve, into the right ventricle. There it's sent through the pulmonary artery into the lungs, where the blood will become reoxygenized because the superior and inferior vena cavas are veined, which means they bring unoxygenated blood into the heart. So once it's gone through the lungs, and in the lungs it actually goes through capillaries, which we will speak of later, it goes back in through into the heart through the left atrium, past the mitral valve, into the left ventricle, and out the aorta, going past the aortic valve. So veins carry unoxygenated blood to the heart, but arteries are blood vessels that carry oxygenated blood away from the heart. So the arteries are a multi-layered tube. They have the ability to expand and or contract. The layers in order from innermost to outermost are the endothelium, base membrane, elastic layer, smooth muscle, another elastic layer, and connective tissue. Fun fact, because the heart creates its own electrical impulse in order to beat, as long as it's still receiving oxygen, the heart does not need the body. So here are just the heart and the arteries. You can see the path of the blood flow through the heart. The blue arrows are unoxygenated blood. The red arrows are oxygenated blood. And then you can see the different layers of the artery. As I mentioned before, veins carry unoxygenated blood to the heart. So because they are not directly connected with the heart pumping blood out of itself, like a vein or an artery is, veins have relatively low blood pressure. So veins actually have valves to keep blood from flowing backwards. Blood flow in the vein is not necessarily caused by the beating of the heart, but rather by the contraction and relaxation of skeletal muscle. Veins' walls are also layered like the arteries, starting with the innermost layer of the endothelium, followed by the base membrane, smooth muscle / elastic fibers, and ending with connective tissue. So the capillaries are thinner blood vessels. They're most concentrated in the lungs. So this is where the exchange of gases, nutrients, waste, and hormones occur. So these are the blood vessels that bring things, throughout your skin and such. They have one layer, and it's one cell thick. So a fun fact, the manifestation of flushing is blood flow in the capillaries. You can see the difference here in the vein and the capillaries. The vein obviously has layers and also a bell, whereas the capillary only has one layer. So if you were to lay out all the arteries, capillaries, and veins in one adult, end to end, they would stretch about 600,000 miles. So the big part of the circulatory system is blood. Blood is made up of several different components. The first one being plasma, which makes up for 55% of blood content. Plasma is the liquid left over if all red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are removed. Plasma is made up of water, salts, and enzymes, as well as antibodies and other proteins. It is the transporting medium for pretty much everything that goes through the circulatory system. It's very important because of this transporting function for fighting diseases, clotting blood, and other clinical functions. Red blood cells are made in the bone marrow, however they float throughout the circulatory system. They contain a protein called hemoglobin, and which makes the red blood cell's primary function carrying oxygen throughout the body. Their life cycle typically is approximately 120 days. So blood cells typically, or red blood cells, because they carry oxygen, they obviously have to go through the lungs, and as I mentioned before, capillaries are very concentrated in the lungs, but capillaries are about the same diameter as red blood cells, so the red blood cells have to file through capillaries single file. That is a fun fact. You can see plasma, red blood cells. Plasma is simply a liquid, red blood cells kind of like a donut shaped thing. We also have white blood cells. They contain about 15% of blood concentration. White blood cells are an important part of the circulatory system. However, they function mostly in the purpose of the immune system. They flow through your bloodstream to find and destroy bacteria, viruses, and other foreign invaders that threaten your wellness. Platelets are tiny cells that clot when a blood vessel is damaged. The process of covering a damaged area of a blood vessel is called adhesion. They also send chemical messages to attract more platelets in a process called migration. See, white blood cell, kind of similar to a red blood cell, except it's not so smooth. Now you can see the platelets when they expand for clotting versus when they're just floating around in blood. So there are a few diseases that can affect the circulatory system and its structures. I have two of them here. First one is atherosclerosis. Sorry, don't quite know how to say that. That's the hardening of fat within blood vessels. It causes the vessels to be less malleable, leading to high blood pressure, heart and or kidney damage, and stroke. Myeloproliferative disorders are a disorder in mostly red blood cells. It's caused by mutation of the stem cells in bone marrow, which create red blood cells. It causes thick blood, which can be linked to heart attacks, strokes, and clots. The circulatory system works very closely with other systems. With the excretory system, the circulatory brings waste to the kidneys, which are part of the excretory system, and the kidneys then filter that waste from the blood and send it outside the body. So without the blood carrying some of that waste into the kidneys, there's no way it would get out of the body. Fun fact, German physician Dr. Werner Forceman studied the circulatory system by inserting a catheter into himself. The circulatory system is also very closely linked to the nervous system because the brain needs a constant supply of oxygen in order to run. In turn, the nervous system helps to achieve maximum efficiency and regulate blood pressure during times of stress. They work together to maintain all the other organ systems. So that's it about the circulatory system. I hope you learned lots. Enjoy the quiz.